The warning bells of war are ringing loud in Europe, and this message is coming straight from Moscow's highest corridors of power. Russia appears to be bracing for a direct confrontation with NATO, not a Cold War, not a diplomatic spat, but an actual military face-off. Russian President Vladimir Putin's top spy chief has publicly accused the NATO of increasing its military activity in the border areas surrounding both Russia and Belarus. And this, he said, has prompted both Russian and Belarusian security services to prepare for quote-unquote preemptive measures against NATO countries. While holding talks with the Belarusian president, the head of Russia's SVR Foreign Intelligence Service has said, and I'm quoting here now, "We feel and see that European countries, especially France, Britain and Germany, are increasing the level of escalation around the Ukrainian conflict. So we need to act preemptively. We are ready for this," quote-unquote. And the spy chief further said that Russia would inflict quote-unquote damage on the entire military alliance if NATO threatens Moscow or Belarus, adding that Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia would be, in his words, the first to suffer. Remember, in April 2022, Russian bombers and fighters practiced delivering surgical strikes in drills in the Baltic region. The drills involved over 10 crews of Su-24M and Su-27 aircraft. But why is Narishkin saying all of this really? Is the NATO actually building its forces near Russia and Belarusian borders? You see, just 2 weeks ago, Germany deployed a 5,000-strong armored brigade in Lithuania, marking Germany's first permanent foreign troop deployment since the Second World War. And where did they place them? Right on Lithuania's border with Belarus. And there's more, by the way. Poland and the Baltic states like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania announced plans to withdraw from an international treaty banning the use of landmines, citing growing threats from Russia. And in mid-February, Finland and American troops carried out massive drills preparing for a winter war near the Arctic region. And just earlier today, the Finnish government decided to keep the border with Russia shut until further notice, without specifying any further details. So as the NATO increases troop presence in its eastern flank and carries out drills for a future war, we are circling back to that big question: what do preemptive measures really mean for Moscow? Just last December, Belarus's president said the country is hosting dozens of Russian nuclear weapons and was in the process of preparing facilities that could accommodate Russia's latest hypersonic ballistic missiles. And just last Friday, Putin said Russia's naval-based nuclear weapons have been completely modernized. You have to listen to this.
The share of modern weapons and equipment in the naval strategic nuclear forces in Russia is already 100%, and I would like to emphasize that this figure must be maintained in the future.
And Russia's 2024 doctrine now treats any conventional attack backed by nuclear powers as a ground for atomic retaliation, a direct threat to NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Pact. So, with the NATO boosting troops near Russia's borders, Eastern European countries pulling out of arms treaties, and Moscow preparing for preemptive action, the war bells between Russia and the NATO are ringing loud and clear. A 5.2 magnitude earthquake shook Southern California, sending boulders tumbling onto rural roadways outside San Diego, items rattling off shelves. But during the earthquake, something rather unique was spotted. Our next story taking a closer look at how elephants at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, who were scrambling to encircle their young, were seen doing something rather extraordinary. Take a look.
Elephants are the largest land animals on Earth. Roaming across savannas, grasslands, and forests, these majestic creatures captivate us with their intelligence, social dynamics, and incredible memories. Studies even show that Asian elephants mourn their dead. But what happens when the ground beneath their feet trembles? At the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, these gentle giants have shown their extraordinary instincts. Look closely how the adults position themselves in a tight circle around the calves, trunks raised, eyes alert, protective, precise military in discipline, and maternal in intent. This extraordinary display of familial bonds and protective instincts reminds us why elephants are revered for their intelligence and empathy. Such behavior is no anomaly. In the wild, elephants depend on the collective strength of the herd to raise young and face danger. The matriarch, typically the oldest and most experienced female, leads with unmatched authority. Under her watch, the herd navigates the world, and during times of crisis, she ensures the calves, the future of the group, are protected at all costs. Today, roughly 400,000 African elephants and 40,000 Asian elephants remain in the wild. But they're vanishing fast due to poaching, habitat loss, and human conflict. Incidents like this remind us why their survival matters. These are not just animals. They are caretakers, strategists, survivors.
Shifting focus now to West Asia, the chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency, currently in Tehran, has just made a not too startling revelation. Iran, he says, is not far from building a nuclear bomb, and Tehran is not backing down. Iran's foreign minister, in fact, has drawn a clear red line, making it absolutely clear that Tehran's uranium enrichment program is off the table when it comes to negotiations. And this stance comes even as Iran remains engaged in talks with Washington that aim to shape the future of its nuclear program.
Iran's enrichment is a real accepted matter. We are ready to build confidence in response to possible concerns, but the issue of enrichment is non-negotiable.
Araghchi's comments come as the U.S. administration came together in the White House Situation Room for a high-level strategy meeting. The meeting was about the next phase of the nuclear negotiations with Iran, scheduled for Saturday. According to a report by Axios, U.S. President Donald Trump brought his top national security and foreign policy officials together to finalize America's position ahead of the next round of the talks, debating over potential concessions that America could make or avoid. Inside the room was the entire U.S. top brass: U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Trump's Special Envoy to West Asia Steve Witkoff. And they had varying opinions, even conflicting views. On one side, Vance and Witkoff pushed for compromise. They argued that some diplomatic give and take might open a path to a final deal. But others, including Rubio and Waltz, were reportedly against this, advocating for a tougher line, one that would keep maximum pressure on Iran. Trump, for his part, has sent conflicting signals. Publicly, he says he prefers a diplomatic solution. But the president also made it clear that if diplomacy fails, military action remains on the table. He's even told aides that the U.S. is prepared to strike Iran's nuclear facilities if negotiations collapse. Despite the secrecy around the Situation Room meeting, the White House confirmed that the maximum pressure campaign continues, and Donald Trump remains adamant that Iran will never get its hands on a nuclear weapon.
Of course, the maximum pressure campaign on Iran continues, but as you know, the president has made it clear he wants to see dialogue and discussion with Iran while making his directive about Iran never being able to obtain a nuclear weapon quite clear. And the president spoke to the Sultan of Oman today, who helped facilitate these talks. I have a readout for all of you. He held a call with the Sultan of Oman today, and he thanked him for hosting the first direct meeting between the United States and Iran and emphasized the need for Iran to end its nuclear program through negotiations.
And a day after appearing to soften his stance, Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff made a sharp U-turn. In a post on X, he demanded that Iran dismantle its enrichment program completely. A stark contradiction to his earlier suggestion that low-level enrichment for energy might be acceptable. And on the other side, Russia, which has been rebuilding its relationship with Washington while maintaining close military ties with Iran, signaled its willingness to mediate. In fact, the Kremlin earlier today said that it stands ready to do whatever it can to help diffuse the tensions and guide Iran and America towards a peaceful resolution. Moscow has repeatedly called for restraint ever since Trump threatened military strikes last month if Iran refused to engage on restricting its nuclear activities. So here's where things stand right now. Iran is maintaining its position on the nuclear deal. America is split between pressure and diplomacy. And Russia is offering diplomatic mediation. The question still is whether Washington will accept Iran's stand with words or with bombs. And Saturday is almost here. Let's now talk about Donald Trump's tariff saga. Stock markets have risen today. Shares in several automakers gaining after Trump hinted that the sector could get some tariff respite. In fact, Wall Street opened slightly higher, while the dollar, which has been battered in recent days, recovered some losses against the euro. European indices performed better than US peers in afternoon deals. But Trump is once again angry with China, US President accusing Beijing of going back on a major Boeing deal. A news report claiming that Beijing ordered airlines not to take further deliveries of the US aviation giant's jets. And as a result, the stocks of Boeing have tanked. On Dow Jones Industrial Average, the aviation giant stocks fell 2% in early trading. China is Boeing's largest market, and estimates reveal that the Asian superpower was expected to facilitate 20% of the global demand for Boeing jets over the next 20 years. The world's first and second biggest economies are locked in this tug of war over reciprocal tariffs. In the past few days itself, the US and China have both escalated the tariff rates, neither side willing to step down. But the standoff is not just about trade and tariffs alone. It's also become a war of power moves and trying to change the narrative. In tit-for-tat moves, America has slapped 145% tariff on China, while the latter has reciprocated with 125% tariffs on American goods. But Beijing says it will not increase the rates further, and officials have requested US counterparts to abolish the tariffs. But beyond the retaliatory moves, there is a lot more happening on the ground. China is on a regional outreach mission to diversify trade ties and find ways to cushion the blow from the heightened American tariffs. President Xi Jinping is on a 3-country tour to deepen bilateral ties with regional neighbors and countries who are part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. After a 2-day visit in Vietnam, Xi Jinping's next stop is Malaysia, also Cambodia. Both the countries that he has not visited in 12 and 9 years, respectively. Talks between the top leaders of both countries still in the early stages. But businesses in China are bracing for the impact, worried if they can survive the escalated rates.
Right now, it's not just a matter of changing tracks. It's a matter of life or death. You could say that. Around 60 to 70% of our business is from American clients. So the pressure we're under is extremely high.
US tariffs on China have now reached 145%. The impact is very big for us because our main market is the United States. I hope that everyone can sit down and talk properly. It would be best to try to keep the tariffs at the same level as before.
Within China, other businesses are trying different trade tricks in order to attract buyers. And the luxury market has become a crucial target. Chinese manufacturers are taking to social media to reveal how luxury products are made in China at 1/10 the cost that buyers pay Western brands. It's not just China. America's most trusted allies are also caught in the tariff storm. Paris says Trump's tariffs shattered trust around the world. Listen in.
The The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has unleashed a storm whose consequences will not stop soon by giving the go to a global trade war without warning, from one day to the next, striking with unimaginable tariffs, first its Chinese competitors, then its closest allies.
D'inimaginable droits de douane.